Hello and welcome back to Indie Rebel VFX, Hollywood effects without the Hollywood budget. I'm your instructor, Chris Temple, and today we are talking about guns and gunfire and muzzle flashes and bullets flying out and shooting your scenes up digitally and all that fun stuff that's just cool to do. Now, this is a blowback airsoft gun, all right? This has a CO2 cartridge inside the handle. This is actually what we used on Ruby, and what this means is that when you squeeze the trigger, all that comes out of the gun is air, but you still get the action of this thing kicking back. And the kickback from it helps the actor really get a feel for, what the gun would actually be doing. So these are great weapons to use when you're wanting to film your action shootout scenes, which I know every low-budget independent filmmaker does. I've been there. I've wanted to do that too. Now, just because this is not a real firearm doesn't mean you shouldn't treat it as such, okay? Things can accidentally get lodged down the barrel and become flying projectiles. So treat these guns as if they're real. Don't do anything with it that you wouldn't do if it was a real gun. And that's just going to help keep everybody safe on set. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you guys how we actually added the muzzle flashes, how we added the shells kicking out, and how we added the bullet holes into the car in the background of some of these shots. So if you're ready to get fired up, let's get going. All right, well, welcome back into your favorite application in the whole wide world, Natron. And let's go ahead and take a look at the shot and figure out what we need to do. Come up with a plan of attack. Let's go and play through it a few times. So we got Ruby popping out from behind the car. Now in the shot prior to this in the film, the car was being shot up by a drone and sparking all over the place. So I know that to start off, we're going to have to come in here and add some bullet holes, right? Bullet holes all over the car. So those are going to have to be tracked in somehow. So we're going to have to deal with that. But the most important part of the shot and what this particular training module is really about is about adding the muzzle flashes. So we know that she's going to fire 3 times. I know that because I'm also the director and I'm the one who shot this. And so she fires once, fires twice. So I need to add the muzzle flash. I need to add the shells kicking out. Although in a shot like this, you probably wouldn't really see the shells, but I'm going to show you how to do that anyway. And then I think we'll be able to call it good at that point. So we're going to add those 3 elements into the scene, and we're going to learn some cool merging techniques as we go as well. So let me first go ahead and show you guys what I've done here with the log to linear conversion, which is already set up. This time around, I actually left it at its default settings. I thought they looked pretty good. So this time, do not change your log to lin. Just go and add a log to lin, and we can move on and get started. So let's begin with the muzzle flashes, and then we will carry on from there, okay? So playing through the shot, I can see that every time she fires, which the first one's going to be probably right around here, the second one's like right here, and the third one is, I think, right about here, we're all at kind of a 3/4 angle, so we're going to make sure that our muzzle flashes reflect that. Now there's a few ways you can go about adding muzzle flashes to your scenes. You can download a stock pack like Action Essentials from videocopilot.net, and that works out pretty well. Problem is that everyone and their mother already uses Action Essentials, and so if you use it, you actually start to recognize the muzzle flashes after a while. And some of you say, well, it's just a muzzle flash. Well, that's true, it is just a muzzle flash, and if you don't mind it looking like every other muzzle flash, go ahead and use it. But I'm going to show you a much cooler way, and that's to design your own. I was actually going to build up a muzzle flash generator in Fusion from Blackmagic Design because I really like the way its noise effects work, much better than the ones here in Natron. And I was able to follow an After Effects tutorial and convert it to Fusion, and it actually worked out pretty well. But then I came across the F12 Action Cache Pack from blendswap.com. And what this is it's a collection of Blender projects. We'll go and I'll show you where they are here. That allows you to do basically anything that your action movie desires. We've got blood splatters, bullet holes, which we're going to use, bullets themselves, which is the casings, explosions, muzzle flashes, smoke and dust, sparks, water, and this is a free asset pack from BlendSwap, which is really cool. And I've actually included a link to this in the text file that contains a list of all the software and all the plugins and effects that we're going to need in order to complete this course. So if you haven't already, go to blendswap.com, download this pack, it's free again, and then we can go ahead and get started with this. We're going to go ahead and start off with muzzle flares. And I want to use the normal muzzle flash, not the assault rifle. As somebody who shoots a lot of firearms, I can tell you that an assault rifle muzzle flash is going to kind of be like a little starburst shape, and that's because assault rifles and just AR-15s and stuff like that in general have a suppressor on the front of it that allows the flash to kind of shoot out through the sides, so you get this little starburst effect. A pistol, which is what we're looking at, does not do that. You just get one fireball at the end of the barrel. So let's go and open up the muzzle flash. Alright, looking at it here, we can see that this is not set up the way we would usually use Blender, but that's alright. It doesn't matter why this is set up the way it is. All we have to be able to do is to make it work for us and know what we need to change and what we need to do. First thing right off the bat I will tell you is that if we scroll through time right here, we can actually choose our own muzzle flash. We can choose the one that we like the best. Now the way this project is set up is that we can only render even frames. If I come here to an odd frame, frame 7, and I press F12 to render it, I get a black screen. But if I go to frame 8 and I choose to F12 that, now we get the muzzle flash, and you can see that actually looks pretty good. So make sure you only choose even frames for your muzzle flashes. What we're going to do is we're going to choose 3 of them because she shoots 3 times that we like, and we're going to render out a still image of the muzzle flash. We don't need a whole animated thing of it rapid firing. We're not doing machine guns here. This is just a single still image. We'll get that composited in, and it's going to look really good. So let's go ahead and line up our shot first. Come over here to the side panel and press lock camera to view. By default, this panel should be open. If it's not, go and press N on the keyboard to open and close it. We want to lock camera to view and make sure that we're in a camera view by pressing 0, okay? That is not camera view. That is the camera view. Once we're in here and we have this box checked, we can go ahead and rotate around our scene using Alt or the middle mouse button. And we just want to go ahead and find ourselves a nice, kind of large, full frame, looking at the muzzle flash just like that. And that looks good. Maybe move it up just a little bit here. And that's a nice 3/4 shot. The explosion starts here and tapers off this way. That's going to match really nice. What's really cool about this muzzle flash generator is that it doesn't matter which way your actor is shooting the gun, because you can match it. If they're shooting left to right, which ours is, you got that. If they're shooting right to left, you can build one from here. Maybe you are up top, kind of looking down at them. You could do that. So you've got all sorts of different options to really just customize this and make sure it's going to be really well integrated into the scene. So you can literally generate a separate muzzle flash every single time your actor shoots in your film. And it's really nice to have that flexibility. Now again, I told you we can't render the odd frame, so let's go to frame 8 and see if we like that. I think that looks good. And let's just go ahead and render that with F12. Now one thing I don't like is I don't like the glow that they've applied to it here in Blender. I want to maybe be able to control that myself inside of Natron. So we can come over here to this little photo icon and come up to the node editor. Once you're inside of here, click on this one that also looks like a photo. And this is Blender's built-in compositor. You could actually composite entire shots here inside of Blender. It does work. I just don't like the layout of it that much, and I'm not as familiar with it, so I choose to do my compositing in Natron. I think it's a bit more powerful than this one is. But once we're in here, I'm just going to click backdrop so I can see my shot. And looking at the nodes they've used, here's glare. This is the offending one. This is the one we don't want to use. And you could hit M and you could turn that off if you want. You can add the glow later on. If you do want to keep the glow, that's fine. Just ignore this whole step completely, but we're going to turn ours off by pressing M on the keyboard to mute that particular node. Alright, with that done, all that's left to do is to check our render settings. So we come over here to the camera, and we want to make sure that we make this 1920 by 1080, and we want to make sure that our resolution is all the way up to 100%, and then that all should be good. So now all we have to do is just F12 this, and that looks quite nice. And then we press F3 on the keyboard to save a still image. So we press F3, it's going to ask where we want to save it. As you can see, I've already done muzzle A, B, and C. That's my 3 gunshots. And the reason why I use the letters instead of a numerical value, instead of like muzzle 1, muzzle 2, muzzle 3, is because if I did that, Natron will think that this is an image sequence, which I don't want to do for this particular shot. I want individual flares, and so I use letters to keep track of what I've done. So just go and label it muzzle A, muzzle B, muzzle C. I'm going to cancel. I don't want to overwrite what I've already done. So, but once you choose the first one, we can hit escape and then come back down to our 3D view over here off to the left. And we find another even frame. Maybe we go to frame 10. We say that looks good. F12 it. Okay, that's done. Press F3 to save it as muzzle B, and repeat for muzzle C. Once you have your 3 gun flashes, I'll see you back in Natron and we will composite these into the shot. Alright, here we are back in Natron, so let's go ahead and read in our flares. I'm just going to press R to read. And I need to back out to where my gunshots actually are. In this case, they're in my VFX folder. Stills, because they're still images. There's muzzle A. That's good. I'm going to bring in B and C as well. By the way, Natron developers, it would be really nice to be able to bring in multiple pieces of media at once instead of this one at a time thing. You can see I can shift click, I can still only bring in one. So if any developers are watching this, please allow me to bring in all 3 at the same time. That would just be absolutely incredible. Alright, I'm going to stick B and C over here off to the side. I don't need those quite yet. Let's just go and focus on A. I know my first gunshot is going to be right here at frame 33, and I can see that because when I zoom in to Ruby, I can see the blowback action on the gun starting to happen because this was a gas blowback airsoft. I'm also watching her trigger finger here too. If I go through the frames a little bit, you can like literally see her finger squeeze, and then you see the gun blow back, and that blowback is from the gas shooting out the front. So I know frame 33 is where I want my muzzle to appear. Let's go and zoom out so we can see what we do. So with our muzzle flash selected, we press M to merge it, and I'm going to connect that up here to the shot. One thing to keep track of with your merges is every now and then when you add them, one of these alpha channels will become disabled. I haven't figured out why that happens, I just know that it does. So just go ahead and re-enable that there, you're going to be good. Let's go ahead and view it. Okay, that's good. We do want to make sure we screen this over the top, so instead of it being an over, which is what it says here, we're going to come down and screen it. That gets rid of all the black. Go back to our muzzle flash, select it, press T for transform. And now we can scale it down, and I find that 0.15 works really great for this shot. And then we can zoom in and position the flash right where we want it, like that. Great, excellent. Next thing we need to do is to fade it on and off so it's only on for the one frame that we want it to be. So I do want it here at frame 33. So you go back to your merge and come down here to this mix slider, and this mix slider is your transparency. You can see I can scale this down and the flash fades on and off. So we want it all the way on at frame 33. Right click the word mix and hit set key. Now we go to frame 34. We turn it off. We go to frame 32. We turn it off as well. What this means is we go 32, 33 it's on, and 34 it's gone. So it's only on for one frame. And that's perfect. Now we can do the same for our other 2 flashes. Okay, so same thing as before. We're going to take B, and we're going to merge it into the shot. I'm going to use screen so I can see what I'm actually going to be doing. Okay, let's go ahead and view that. And actually, before we get here, I actually need to figure out where this shot needs to be. So let's go ahead, go back up to our original shot, scroll through a little bit. And I know I'm getting close here. I want to watch her trigger finger, and I want to watch the gun. So I can see her finger squeeze, and the gun kind of moves back a little bit there. So I think that's probably a good spot for a flash, frame 56. Okay, so go back down here to this. Go to your flash, press T for transform. And scale this down again to 0.15. Zoom out a bit, our flash is down here. Just grab the center dot and position it back to where we want it to be. And now I can go through and say, okay, there's the point of the gun, somewhere, probably right around there. It's going to be pretty good. And now we're going to do the same thing for number C, letter C. Figure out where it needs to go off. Oh, check that out, see? I'm getting ahead of myself. I forgot to fade this on and off. But fortunately, it's a real quick fix, so just come back up here to our mix, frame 56, set key, and go back to frame 55, turn that down, 57, turn it down. Now it's only on for 56, that's good. We find the final frame. Trying to watch her fingers here. We're coming near the end of the shot. Okay, so I can see her gun kind of lurches right there, and her trigger finger moves. So this is the final shot right there at frame 65. Cool. So we come down here, add our merge, connect the B back up to the top. Let's view it. We're going to make it a screen. We're going to transform the flash itself back to 0.15. Zoom out. Position it. So there's the barrel right there. Looks fairly nice. Go back to our merge and keyframe this on and off. Set key. Go to frame 64. Turn it down. And frame 66. Turn it down again. Alright, let's go ahead and see the fruits of our labors here, shall we? I'm going to make this full frame and play it from the beginning. Alright, and looking at that, that looks pretty good. So now what we need to do is just go ahead and tweak the flash just a little bit to kind of integrate it more and make it look like it's more on fire. And this is really easy to do. What I'm going to do is actually come in here and rearrange my nodes a little bit, alright? What I've done so far is I've got all my flashes, and they come in here and they get merged in, merged in, merged in. But if I want to do some color correction, I would now have to color correct each of these individually. And I don't want to do that because I'm lazy, okay? So what I want to do is, first of all, disconnect this from here. And move this off to the side here. I'm going to put my flash up on top. And for this first node, I'm going to add a constant. Okay? This just gives it something to merge into, so we just put that right there, and that's good. Now for the next shot, we're going to take this, we're going to go ahead and put it on top just a little bit lower here. Because again, I go left to right, top to down, so this angle tells me which way to read the shot. Let's go and move these out of the way. And then we're going to do the same thing again right here. So we put this merge at that 45-degree angle, and we come up here just like that. So now what I've got is I've got my flashes all merged on top of each other, and then we're going to add a final merge back into our original scene, okay? Just like that. Now we also need to make sure that we take the final merge, which is this one here, and screen it, because you can see it's got the black box right now because it's set to over. So we're going to go ahead and come into here, and we're going to screen it. Again, that stupid alpha bug, that's okay. And now with it screened, I've got my flashes again. I can play through, and then here comes the second one, and the last one, bang, right there. So that's great. And what's cool about this is if I look at what I've set up here, I've now basically set up a pre-comp. I've got all these flashes together, and I can add some color correction to them before they get merged in on top of my footage. So let's just go ahead and add our own glow to the shot. So I'm going to press tab, type in glow, and there it is. And let's go ahead and zoom in here so we can see what it's actually doing. So here it is with the glow, and if I turn the glow off, by the way, you just press D to enable or disable the node. So right now it's disabled, and then we can enable it again and see it with the flash. So there's with the flash, without a flash, with, and you can see it adds a nice little haze around here. It actually looks like it's made up of light. And you can come in here and you can tweak stuff a little bit. I like playing with the saturation, kind of boost the color of the flash a little bit, makes it a little bit more vibrant. And that looks really nice. And this extra glow almost makes it look like it's flashing against her skin and stuff, and just adds a little bit of extra light to the scene. So that looks really nice. And you can come in here and you can tweak some of these other settings. But for me, and what I'm trying to do for the shot, that looks great, and I'm going to call that good. So now what I want to do is simply box these all together, or group these all together with a backdrop node. So I press tab, type in backdrop, and we can go ahead and group them. So I'm going to start drawing my shape, line it up, go to here. With the backdrop selected, we're going to call this flash. Give it a high number like 30 so I can read it. And we're going to change the color to yellow. So now I've got my flash, essentially my muzzle flashes, and you can see they're all grouped. Alright, let's talk about doing the shell casings now. To do that, let's understand really briefly how guns work. There's a firing pin inside the pistol itself, and when you squeeze the trigger, that firing pin is released and slams forward onto the cartridge. Now, a cartridge is made up of both a bullet and the actual shell itself that contains the bullet and the gunpowder. And so what happens is it causes an explosion inside there. The explosion forces the bullet out the front end of the gun here. You get the fireball from that, And that fireball explosion pushes the slide back on a semi-automatic, which is what this is, throws the slide back, and that in turn ejects the shell out, the casing, and rechambers up your next round so you can shoot again. So what we need to do is to now add these shells spewing out from here and onto the ground. Now, because I know that the shell comes out from about here, we want it to actually be behind the flash. So what I'm going to do is just make some room for that here in a little bit by dragging this merge down and dragging my flash down. And that's going to allow me to do my shells and stuff here and merge them into the upline of the node graph. So let's go ahead and jump back into Blender and see if that action cache has something else we can play with to make our job a little bit easier. Now I'm just going to go to Open, and we'll start off with this one. This is the 9mm shell spinning. Now, thanks to Video Copilot and other stock footage packs, this is pretty common. You find a image of or an animation of a spinning shell, and then it's up to you to go ahead and keyframe that throughout your shot. So you gotta make it kind of come out of the gun and drop down, and it's just a real pain in the butt. But unfortunately, this is extremely popular too. I don't like this that much. I've done this before. I did this on my last feature, and it takes too much time. But fortunately for us, the guy that put this action pack together has created another one called 9mm shell ejecting. He's also got some other ones too, but what this is it's got this little plane here. This little square is called a plane, and it is ejecting a particle, except in our case, the particle is the shell casing. So watch this. If I hit Alt-A to animate, you can see it just spits this thing right off. And that's going to come in really handy for us. In fact, if I zoom out, you can actually see it drops down and everything. So let's go ahead and frame up a shot with this and see what we can do to make this work. Hit Escape. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my side panel with N, hit Lock Camera to View, and we're just going to rotate around to maybe here, and let's zoom out a bit. Okay, my clipping is kicking in, so I need to right click to select my camera. This dotted line is your camera window, by the way. We go over here to the camera itself and change the clipping to a really high number like 50,000. With that in place, I can see the plane here, and if I hit Alt-A, I can see it ejecting the bullet. Cool. What I want to do now is actually position this so we've got more range to work with. Now there's a few ways I could do it. I could come back over here to my render settings and change my resolution this way, but I find an even easier way to do it is to simply just come in here and rotate my camera like this, keeping in mind that this is going to be the top of my frame, this is going to be the bottom, and now I can just come in here and kind of drop this into place like this. Alright, there we go. So now we've got the bullet kicking up from here and dropping down. Let's go ahead and render a still frame here of it kicking out and just see how this looks. I'm going to flip over to my GPU render just because it's a little bit faster, and we press F12 to give it a go. Alright, that rendered out quite nicely, and you can see it only took about 25 seconds, so that's not too bad. The only problem with the render is we can still see the actual plane that's doing the emitting of these particles, which is the shells. So what we want to do is we want to hide that from view of the camera. Now here's how we do it. Let me hit Escape. I'm going to select the plane with right click, if I can find it here. Whoop, too far. I need to come back in here first and uncheck Lock Camera to View so I can zoom in and see what I'm doing. Aha, here it is down here. So with the plane selected, I'm going to come up over here to this little firework shooting star looking things, and that brings up our particle settings. And all the way down here at the bottom, there are some render options. And if we look at it, we see that emitter is checked. So if I uncheck emitter and F12 the scene again, we can see that that renders out much better. We don't see the emitter. All we have is the shell casing. At this point, we can see the motion blurs in effect. We can see that it's got alpha transparency, and so we're ready to render this out. Go back to your render settings, and let's just double check to make sure. 1920 by 1080, 100%, that's good. 24 frames a second, I like that. And we come down here, we have RGBA with a PNG file format, that's also good. Scrolling down a little bit more, we have motion blur checked, and underneath film we have transparent checked. All those settings look awesome. Now it's time to come up here to where it says output, and we're going to choose where we want to save our file. As you know, I do have a section set up on my hard drive for these VFX elements. I have one here called Bullet Shell, and I've done this a few times already, but basically you just name it eject and hit accept, and then come up here and hit animation and you're good to go. Because I've already rendered it out though, I'm gonna hop back over to Natron and start compositing. So if you're following along at home, go ahead and pause this video now, hit animation, and we'll let you render out your animation sequence here, image sequence of the casing coming out of the gun, and I'll meet you back in Natron. Alright, back inside of Natron here, let's go ahead and read in our footage. It's bullet shell, and I want this eject. Alright, let's go ahead and tab into this to view, and we'll fill our frame, and let's just watch this once and see how it looks. So we can see the animation is only about 30 frames long roughly, and that looks pretty good, but it looks a little slow. I think we need to speed that up a bit, so let's go ahead and do that. So the way we speed it up is with a really cool time tool, okay? So we're going to select our footage of the shell, press tab, type in time, and we have a few different options here. We've got time offset, which we're going to use in just a moment. We also have retime, and this is what we want to start with. Go back to frame 1, and with retime, I want to increase the speed of this. So if I just go ahead and start playing this here, this is at 1, right? If we go ahead and we start moving the slider here, you can see that we're actually speeding up the bullet, and it's getting further along in its animation. And I think that probably 2.5 is going to look really good for this. So let's go 2.5 and play it now. You can see that was gone pretty quick. There we go. It's fast, it shoots out fast, but that's alright. That's going to look just fine for what we're wanting to do. Now the other thing that I find helps is to change it from linear to nearest. So if you look right here, with linear we end up getting this double image effect, right? We're just going to go to nearest. We only want one of those. Let's go and watch that. There, that looks pretty good. Now we're ready to start compositing. So let's go to frame 33 and zoom out and take a look at our shot here. I actually want to view this last merge down here where the flash is. I can make sure that I do have a muzzle flash here. I do. So let's go back into here, add an emerge node, and we're going to add this into the line up here. Or B into there, and like that. Cool. Now what we need to do, because we know by frame 33 the effect has already taken place, we need to offset it so that way it appears and starts right when this flash goes off. So here's how we do that. With the retime selected, press tab and type in time again, and this time we want to use time offset. Here's what's cool about this. I can now offset this by clicking right after the 0 and scrolling with my mouse button, and basically I'm moving it through time. Now if you look right here, because I'm starting to get close to frame 33, I can actually chase it through and watch it do its thing. So where's the first version of it? It looks like it appears right here. I can see it appear, and we go through, and then it comes and does its little drop. So I want to start it right there at frame 32. That's its offset. Now we can go ahead and add a transform node, and with that selected we can now put this into place where it needs to go. So I start rotating it, keeping an eye on the dot right here. That's what it represents. We're going to rotate this 90 degrees, and now we can just drag it down. And what I'm looking to do is put this little mark, let's go and make this full screen so you guys can see, put that little dot, which is the shell kicking out, right where it would be kicking out of the gun, which would be somewhere right around here. And you can see, because of the way we've stacked the flash on top, it actually fits in, the shell fits behind the flash, which is how it is in real life. Now I do think that shell is a little bit large, so we're going to scale it down just ever so slightly. So let's go ahead and come back over to here, and we'll scale it down just a little bit. Let's try 0.9. Now of course when we scale it, we're going to have to reposition it again now too. So I come back in here, there's my bullet, right up here, or there's my shell I should say, and put that right inside. There, that's going to look great. So let's go ahead and watch this once and make sure that this is all working and looking good the way we want it to. All right. Now I think that shell might still be a bit large. So let's just go ahead and shrink it down just a little bit, and then we'll be able to apply all those transformations to the second and third shells. As you know, the first one here is always the most difficult, and after that it just gets a lot easier. So now I can see the size of it right there. Bring up our transform. Let's go to try 0.8. Let's try 0.7. There, that looks better. Okay. Just gonna move this up. And we can position this, if we go back to frame 33. Make sure that's right where it needs to be, which is probably over a bit more. About like that. Perfect. So that one's good now. So now we just have to do it a few more times. So what I'll do is I'll take my time offset and my transform, and I'll move those over here, and then I'm going to actually select them, copy them, and paste them. Okay, I'm going to undo this merge right now, and I'm going to put it into this one now, and take the source of this time offset and go into my retime. We'll go ahead and line it up down here so it's all nice and neat. And what I'm going to do now is go find my next explosion, which is somewhere right around here. There it is, frame 56. Come down to this transform node. And actually first we go to this time offset, and we need to bump this up now through time more. So probably 55, 54. So here's the case there. If we go to 55, still there, 56, it's gone. So let's start that at 55. Now we go to the transform, and we'll just go ahead and put it into place. Okay, there it is peeking out behind the muzzle flash. We drop it right behind it. So I was watching it appear as I moved it into place to see what it did. So that's one's good. Now we need to do one more of those. So Control V again. And again, hook this into my retime. And we'll take that merge, put it into here. Drop this in so it's all nice with the others. Go to the time offset. And let's go ahead and jump to the next one, which I believe is 65. Nope, not 65, 66. Where's my explosion? Yeah, there it is. It was 65. Time offset. So we're going to go probably 64 with it. Nope, 65. Let's see, where is it? There we go. Yep, 64. I just saw it appear right here. Use the transform. Now keep an eye on it. Here it is here. I'm going to move it up to here, right behind the flash. And then pull it out to the side so I can see where it would be coming out of the gun. A little higher, a little lower, and hide it in right there. Great. Let's just go and straighten up this and that one. Cool. Now what we need to do is merge all of our shells together. So I'm just going to come down here, add a merge, and we'll just put a B here at the first one, A to this one. What a lot of people don't know is you can put multiple inputs together, so we can put that one into here too. And then we're going to take our A input from this and go into here. So now what's effectively happened is we've got one shell ejecting that we're using 3 times. It's been sped up, and we just simply offset the time each time we want to do it, put it where we want, merge them together, and comp those into the shot. Now again, the reason why we merge these all together first is 1, to keep things clean, and 2, if we want to do any color correction, we can do it to all 3 instances at the same time. Now it could be said that, yeah, we could go ahead and color correct it up here first, and that would be another way to do it too. Drop in a color correction and then let everything go. We merge it in 3 or 4 times, but I personally think this is just a little bit cleaner to have one merge into the main pipe over here. Let's go ahead and add another backdrop to this now for this one. And we'll go ahead and scale this to size. Put it like that. Drop it down. We're going to call this one shells. Again, make it fairly large. And we'll do the color of this one kind of more orangey brown, like that. Okay. And now we can just grab our entire group, line it up nice and pretty. And that takes care of that. All right, 2 elements down, 1 more to go, and that is to deal with now the bullet hits on the side of the car here at the beginning of the shot. All right, so let's go ahead and zoom into our node graph here just a little bit. And we're going to add a tracker node connected to our linear conversion here. So we hit tab, type in tracker. There we go. Connect that to the source. Okay, so far so good. I think I'm actually going to start my track over here near frame 18 because that's when the car starts to go out of frame, and by then we don't have any more bullet holes in the shot. So we'll start here and work our way backwards. Go and hit the plus button down here to add a tracker. And we want to just go ahead and put this over here on the car. Let's go ahead and scale this to size. There. And that should track quite nicely with a little bit of help from us. We're only going to worry about the translation right now. We don't need to worry about anything else. And let's go ahead and track backwards and see how far we can get. All right, looks like it failed right from the get-go. Looking at my frame here. So let's go ahead and fix that. And there. We're just going to keep tracking previous for a bit. Oh, you can see down here we've already lost it. So let's go ahead and back up. Okay, so right here at frame 16, we need to fix it. And we go to there. Okay, let's try 15. 15's good. Okay, oh, we lost it here. So actually that looks right. Go back again. And this is pretty much how it works. You just frame by frame, wait it out, let it update. You gotta remember too, I'm on a laptop and I'm doing a screen capture as I do this here. Okay, so far so good. Alright, it's starting to rise just a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and lower that back down to put it back into its place. Okay, it's still rising up again. I don't know why it's doing that. So we'll just add another keyframe and fix it. And if I look through all these all look to be about the same. I've got the dot in almost the same location. That's good. That means we're not going to have any sliding of the bullet holes when we do this. What I do want to do is give myself some more room to work with here. And it is tough because you can see the perspective is shifting on the car and the light is changing. But as long as we keep this close, everything else should just fall right into place and it's going to be just fine. Okay. So now, we've got a decent little track thing going on with this here, and this should stay locked in pretty well. So let's go ahead, go back to frame 1, or 0, and come into our transform options. We're going to make this a match move, transform, and export that out. So now we've got some data here we can play with. Next step we need to do is actually generate our bullet holes themselves. So let's jump into Blender and we'll see what kind of trouble we can get into there. Alright, back in Blender, let's go ahead and go open. And inside the action cache we have bullet holes. And we're dealing with a car, so we want to do metal. And there is an animated one, which we don't need for this particular shot. We'll use just bullet hole metal, open that up. And that looks pretty good. But if we go back to the actual shot, we can see that the car is kind of at an angle. So our bullet hole needs to match that. So let's go into here. And right down here with our widget controls, there's a curve. And that gives us rotation controls. And all we're going to do is just go ahead and rotate this to match the perspective of the car about like that. I'm going to come back to my render settings, switch it over to a GPU, and F12 this bad boy. Alright, before we hit F3 and render this out, let's go and take a look at our settings. We need to make sure it's RGBA, and that should be good now. So now let's go ahead and F3 that, And bullet hole A. Remember, we use letters, not numbers. Hit save as image. So metal bullet hole A, save as image. And that's good. All right, escape out of that. Now, if we zoom out a little, we can see there's 2 other bullet holes over here. So let's go ahead and just go to a top view with 7. We're going to select our camera. Go back to the arrow for the widget. And position our camera right in front of these 2 holes, just like that. Go back to our camera view with 0. And we've got 2 more bullet holes we can play with here. So let's go ahead and take each of these and rotate them a little bit. So we're going to go back to our rotation. And actually, you know what? Let's do this from the top. Looking at this, I can see my angle here. I'm just going to go ahead and match that. I used R on the keyboard for rotate in case you guys forgot. We're going to do the same thing with this one. About like that. And then we also want to move that forward in line, imagining a straight line here like this, because that's how it would be on a car. Go back to our camera view. And that gives us a nice little bit of perspective there. That looks good. The only other thing I might do is select my camera, press N, lock camera to view, and let's go and rotate the camera around just a little bit more, get a bit more extreme of an angle, about like that. Good, F12 it. Okay, when all said and done, F3, and this will be metal bullet holes B. Save that. And let's go back into Natron and composite these in. Alright, so back here in Natron, let's go ahead and just get out of our tracking mode for a moment. Ultimately, what we're going to do now is we're going to add bullet holes along the car, and then at the very end, after we've transformed them and put them where we want, we're going to hook up this transform, and that's going to offset them over time as they move. So I want to come back over here to the right-hand side, and we're just going to go down to the bottom. Sorry, bottom left. It's been a long day. Alright, let's go ahead and find our bullet holes and read those in. Go VFX Elements, Stills, bullet hole A. Okay, there that is. And bullet hole B. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to merge these together, position them around a little bit, and then we're going to duplicate them a few times and really just shoot up the side of the car like crazy. It's going to be really cool. So to start with, what you can do is you can actually just select the entire group and disable it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw my line to select all these, press D, okay, scroll down, we're going to draw another selection for our flashes, press D, disable all those. Alright, so now if we come back over to here, we should get some pretty real-time updates. And let's go ahead and add another merge for our flashes. So we're going to press M, hook our B input up to the background, put that here, let's go ahead and view that with 1. And let's go ahead and merge these 2 together here. A over B, and then we hook that into the A of this merge. Just like that. Cool, now we can add a transform node underneath each of these, and we can start moving these around in position. First thing we want to do is we want to scale them way, way down. I'm going to do the same thing here. What we want to do is find a size that looks like it'd be real bullet holes in the side of the car. So that's still a bit big. Let's go ahead and try 0.05. And 0.05 actually doesn't look too bad. Let's go and try it with the other one and just be sure. And maybe we want to put that one like right down here. And that looks nice. I like the sizing. That looks good. Now what we can do is just go ahead and add another transform and then just keep merging it into our final merge node right down here. So I'm going to put these up over here like this, just to get them out of the way. And we're going to add another transform. Connect that up to here. Go to our A2, put that up. And then this transform can now be brought down to here. We can rotate it so it looks different, doesn't look like the same thing. Put that maybe right there on the wheel well. We'll do the same with this one here. So we're going to add another transform into this shot, hook it up to it. Come down here, hook it into A3. And then this one can go like over here. Actually, we'll just stick it right here in the center. And again, we want to rotate it around just so it's randomized a little bit. So already that's looking pretty good. And let's just go ahead and continue the pattern up through the side. Now I know that we went ahead and we kind of like offset these a little bit at some angles and stuff to try to match it in before, but honestly by the time we get this all done and integrated, these are going to be so small in the frame that nobody's going to notice that the angle on the bullet holes isn't quite physically accurate. You can get away with a lot. Don't give the audience too much credit, okay? I guarantee you've been fooled by this kind of stuff too before in movies. Alright, and that looks pretty good. So what we can do now is just finish integrating these. I want to go ahead and blur them a little bit because we always need to do that with our CGI. So we're going to give it a blur of maybe 2. That looks good. I also want to go ahead and add a color corrector to this. So we're going to select our blur, press C, and let's go ahead and just add some contrast to it. I just want to make sure that this black matches this black in here. That might be a little too much, so we'll go ahead and pull the contrast down a little. Too little. There, that looks pretty good. That looks like it matches. And then that is it for that. Now what we can do is come back up to the top, take this linked transform, and we'll disconnect this for a moment. Drop that in, take the source, hook it up to the color, hook the A to here. Now they're in place using that reference frame, and if we just go ahead and play through the shot here, they should all go off screen. And that actually looked pretty good. You can see there's no sliding because the shot goes so fast. The only thing it really needs now is just some motion blur. So we come into the transform node, that's offsetting it all, the tracked one, turn our motion blur up to 1. Now they all blur nicely. If we go back to frame 1 and play through it, you can see that looks really nice. And that's all there is to do it. So let's go ahead and group up our bullet holes, and we'll just make a few final touches, and then we can call this thing good. So I'm going to add another backdrop to my scene. Let's go and zoom out a bit here first, and add a backdrop. Okay, here it is. Go and move it up a little bit, zoom in, there's my arrow. About like that. And just go ahead and encapsulate our nodes with it. That looks good. Let's just make it big so we can see here. Move these down. Move that one down. And the other thing I want to do is take all these, move them down to the bottom just a little bit like that. Move that down too. Cool. Get out of here. We're going to call this holes. Make it big at 30. And we'll leave this one as gray. That works good for us. Now, what we got to do, turn back on all of our other nodes. Make sure we get them all here. Hit D. That re-enables everything. Let's go to frame 33 just to double check, make sure everything's working. Okay, there's our muzzle flash. That looks great. And I do believe we are ready to render this all back out. All right, and that's looking pretty good. Got the flash, got the shells, got the bullet holes in the side of the car. And again, I've kept the stuff a bit larger for the purposes of the screen recording, but I think you'll see that, you know, sometimes maybe scaling these down just a little bit better, like the shells and like the bullet holes, will add just that little extra bit of realism to it. But I want to make sure that they'd be captured in the recording, so I did do them a little bit larger than I probably would if this was a real shot. But this looks good, and I think you guys are now ready to move on to the next course, so I will see you there.